Hey, we are here on the Rec Yard live because it's Wednesday night at 7 p.m. and this is what we do. My name's Marcy Marie.
I'm Tunchi.
Hey, Tunchi, how are you? Girl, we are always coming in with some kind
Something. There's always something happening,
of, okay,
but
I'm in a new studio.
I'm so proud of you. I want everyone that is tuning in at this point, and Justin said it was past 7. We need to be more punctual. Um, what was I going to say? Oh, please tell Marcy, everyone, how wonderful. Look at this video. I am so pleased. I want to cry, and I cry over everything that
Well,
moves my spirit.
I drove into town. I'm not in the sticks right now.
I mean, your video's looking better than mine, so now I'm gonna have to try to fix my lighting or
Yeah.
something. Now I look pale, and
Yeah. That's
well, you
rough.
didn't have to say it like that.
So I'm really excited for tonight. We have some big conversations to be had tonight. Um, and Jennifer, someone that you haven't met, is going to be our guest.
I'm ready.
And um, her name is Neala Thomas, and she and I did time together at Lane Murray, and she was my play kid. So she called me mom. That was my baby in there, and we've connected since we've been home. She informed me we hadn't seen each other in a year. And when she contacted me last week, and she's like, we haven't seen each other in a long time. So we're getting to hang out tonight, and I was excited that it fell right in line with our topic for tonight. Our topic, we're talking about youth prisons in Texas. And Neala was incarcerated at the age of 13.
Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah. She was handcuffed and arrested and sentenced to prison at 13. So from 13 until she was 21, she was incarcerated.
I want people to sit with that for a moment, because when we've done our advocacy around closing youth prisons, getting kids out of the adult system, right? People are shocked when you tell them that there are child prisons. I don't know what they think in their mind happens to kids in Texas, but they seem pretty shocked that there would be prisons for kiddos, or that you would certify a 14-year-old, a child, as an adult to go into the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. People just really don't understand that. So to humanize that and actually see people that have been through that, I hope it spreads awareness to get a new vision of justice for everybody in the state of Texas. So I'm glad she's here. I'm glad she's here.
I'm glad she's here too. She's here in the studio with me, and I've got to hug on her. I got to pick her up from work today, and we've already had some really good conversations around that subject. So when she's ready, she can come join us over here if she's paying attention. She's trying to connect to the Wi-Fi right now on her phone. So yeah, so we were talking a few things had come up when we were talking before the show. Um, you and I have discussed the no touching rule inside of prison.
Mm-hmm.
And so if someone was upset or needed consoling, I spent 34 days in solitary confinement behind consoling a grown woman. I hugged the top of her shoulders. And I was just trying to imagine how that looked for a 14-year-old kid that needed a hug. It just hurt my heart so much when that reality kind of hit that these kids, the rules are as harsh and even harsher than the adult prisons in Texas. And it was a serious offense for them to touch in any way.
Yeah.
And they certainly weren't getting any of that from any kind of maternal figure. Like at least when Niala got to Lane Murray unit, and she was upset about something, or if she just needed a hug because we're humans and we need that, I could sneak her a hug, and that could happen. But where she wasn't getting that from any kind of parental or figure. It was yucky. Niala, get on over here, girl. I want to hug her now when I just think, like, trying to wrap my mind around all of that. I'm trying to hold our camera.
Oh shoot, I forgot.
You remember how we have to sit up
Oh
so
yeah,
we can
yeah.
see.
Oh, yes.
I'm back.
Please sit up because I got scolded in front of 1,000 people for leaning
Oh,
back while she was talking. So
oh man.
Well, because look now,
here we go.
because you got scolded, Jennifer Toon, because you weigh 45 pounds. And so you're already very much smaller than me. So if you're leaned way back and I'm up here at the camera, it looks like a giant.
No, it does not.
Old.
Marcy, it does not.
It does.
She said she the one said John.
I know what it looks like. I know angles are everything, positioning is everything, and that was important. But this is important
Y'all
because
like my ankles.
yes, I want y'all to see how cute she is. She's just really adorable. So let's jump right in. We're talking about youth prisons. This is Niala.
How you doing?
Get on that camera.
Oh my god.
I was telling Tunchi that you are not shy. So don't act shy on here now because you were a clown. If there was a class clown at Lane Murray,
Oh,
you were it because you were always cheering people up with your humor and making jokes, even when things were really crummy, like in medium custody when the officers were being particularly harsh that day or we were locked down. You would be at your door cracking a joke,
man.
trying to lighten people's spirits.
Cause Machado show gonna darken your spirit.
Oh.
But ooh,
She's coming with the names.
he got little man syndrome.
Oh,
So,
da-da-da.
we're live.
My bad.
Well, if it's truth, honey, it's truth. We love truth on our channel.
Yes,
So,
we do. And
Appreciate you.
there's
but
probably
we also don't want to be sued for libel or slander.
right.
No, you can say
I said macadamia cookies. That's what
Yes.
I said.
Oh yeah, because we all have our code names and words.
macadamia.
We all know what that is, right?
Did y'all know we did that? That we have code names for some even incarcerated people, but lots of officers we have a code name because you would not want to get caught saying that officer's name
Right.
in some kind of way. But we all knew, hey, such and such is at Chow Hall or such and such is on the streets, and it would be a code name.
Man.
We had remember Code Red? Don't say a name. We had a code red. We had a code red, a code pink.
Oh, we had cold pink.
So,
Cold
anyways,
red, though.
well, we're here to talk about Texas youth prisons, Thomas, and you have some knowledge of that.
Mm-hmm.
So, tell us, how old were you when you got incarcerated?
I was at 13 when I first went to TYC, and I did 4 years over there.
And
Which-
then, yeah,
I'm sorry, I wanted to because TYC is what TJJD used to be called. So when someone
Yeah.
says they were at TYC, it's like, ooh, boy, we're getting really into the belly of the beast. Which one were you at?
Well, by the time I went, was like 2011. I was only at the only girls one in Brownwood.
Yeah, Brownwood, still a nasty, nasty facility. Okay, I'm sorry. Please continue.
well, no, jump right in, Tunchi, because this is kind of your domain.
Mhm.
So tell us what you know about it.
Well, Brownwood was the reception for the Texas Youth Commission when I went there. I was there in 1994, 95, and then we were at a facility out in Coke County that was just for girls. That was transferred over to boys when we had a bunch of sexual assaults and lawsuits that happened. But Brownwood was tough. It was boys and girls were there. It was co-ed for a long time. Then they switched it over to girls. So you can imagine all kinds of stuff happened when it was co-ed. But these older facilities, they just have a history of extreme violence. For the boys, it was gladiator-like fights. The staff would put them in fights that very much resembled gladiator styled, and they would place bets on them. The girls, we spent a lot of our time in the Texas Youth Commission doing everything we could to avoid being sexually assaulted from staff. I mean, that was a part of your existence, was being on alert, to avoid that as much as possible. And some girls, it really was the luck of the draw who was able to avoid that. It's constant survival mode. Like, you are in constant survival mode in terms of avoiding sexual assaults, having enough food to eat. It really was. It's horrendous, and I'm you and I will always be bonded through those experiences, and we don't even know each other completely yet, right? But I know exactly when you say where you were. I know I'm there. I'm there with you in your mind.
They end up turning the one I was at. They end up turning it back co-ed,
Mm,
but it ended up serving as just the orientation unit
right.
for boys, and then they at least had three dorms where they would do it by the ages. You got your young ones, then you got your drug dorm, and then you got your just regular population. But you only stay there. They only stay there for 3 weeks, then you get transferred. So,
Hmm.
but but the females, nah, we was there day by day, every day.
So you stayed there 4 years,
Mm-hmm.
and were you under determinate sentencing, or did you get out and then get sent to TDCJ?
Okay, so I was there from 2011 to 2015, and I will say a lot of people know me still now. I'm friends with a lot of folks that I'm there, so some people can reiterate what I'm saying. You know what I'm trying to say. But now, really, I started off just kind of doing my own thing, but then you have to work stages, and I did all my stages, and I was doing good. I made it all the way to a stage 3, finna be a stage 4 in less than 24 hours. They came back and told me I cannot go to that halfway house up that was up the street from my dad. They said I could not go to that halfway house because I had to go to court for a charge I did 2 years before that.
Hmm.
So they really stopped me from going home. I really wasn't even doing that. They stopped me from going home. But my caseworker at the time, we had a bond. You kind of, if you cool with some of them, you build bonds, and she was crying with me. So yeah, TYC just a bad place, man.
It's a bad place. I tell folks that did time with us and at Lane Murray or Mountain View, don't get Marcy started on.
She went to Twin Falls Prison is where
Oh Lord,
she
No,
finished her
wait,
time at
ma'am,
barely real prison.
ma'am.
We were
I did wait.
struggling
I,
at Lake Murray.
madam.
Okay.
I did. I did when I was 17 when I got transferred. I did my time at Lane Murray, and then I did my time at Riverside for 10 years. And then my second time was at Mountain View. So I do know. I do know. But we will have the battle between Mountain View and Lane Murray some other time. But I tell folks that it was bad, right? TDCJ is bad. It sucks ass. It's terrible. But
they
the
say prison
things,
bad, but nah,
but
nigga
the
just
Texas,
is worse.
that's right. It's a certain type of. I don't even know how to explain it. How would you explain it?
I got you. So, we can really put it in real life, free world and, lockdown world. We can really put it in perspective. I got you. You can really just say TYC is basically all the CPS cases without drugs involved. You That's all you can think of. That's all you can think of. It's that bad. In every situation you think of, you'll be like, dang, I would have called CPS on them. I would have called CPS on them. Any situation, it don't matter because it's nothing but kids there.
Hmm.
So you're saying the kids were treated in a way that if they were going through that in the
In the
free
free
world,
world, they would have got CPS called on them. I'm
Hmm.
talking about immediately, real quick.
Yeah. Well, and Marcy, that's something that we all say when we do advocacy, right? Is that if the state was if this was a parent that was treating children this way, they would be in jail, right? They would be CPS would be in their life, they would be underneath the jail. But the state is allowed to get away with treating children this way when even parents aren't. It's how does that even make sense to anybody? You know?
I don't even understand. It's backwards. That's all I can say. It's backwards.
we've been reading some this year. Kind of a movement has been happening around these youth prisons, and it's drawn the media has been kind of active in that area, and they've been putting out reports of kids not being able to get out of their cell to use the restroom.
Oh no.
um, like there's not a toilet in their cell, and they're getting reports of kids having to use water bottles and whatever else they can find in their cell. Did you have a restroom in your cell? How was it? Were you in a cell? Were you in a dorm?
Well, it depends. Like it's really a college campus with a gate around it. So you got about 7 dorms on the whole unit. But you got right in the center is a big metal tin building, and that is security to hold whatever they call it in prison. That's what you would call it there.
Solitary
Solid,
confinement.
exactly. But you got two sides. Got one wing and you got another wing. Them have restrooms in their cells. But then you have a whole nother wing that has no restrooms in their cell.
Right.
None. This a whole wing. There's no cell, there's no bathrooms in there.
So, any parent of a teenager, think about the maddest that your teenager has ever made you, even if they're generally a easygoing kind of kid. They still have teenager ways. And I can't imagine that same scenario being now with somebody that's incarcerated with staff that don't have any emotional bond towards that kid, towards that young adult trying to figure out life, because so much happens emotionally and mentally and physically that between the ages of 13
Mhm.
and 19 or 21, those ages, so much happens. So I'm just trying to wrap my mind around how did you handle that? What about did were the how were the officers? Did you find some kind of reprieve into some of those? Because obviously some of them were bad. If they were able to get away, if you're saying they got away with things that if they had happened in the free world to their own kids, their kids would have been taken from them. Did you find any reprieve?
My reprieve was to fight back. I mean, I wasn't just finna let them do me any kind of way, but I'm also kind hearted. I'm that type of person. So if I see a guard messing with another kid, of course I'm gonna step in for them because I know they ain't finna do nothing to you. I will though. So I used to go after them myself because I'm that type of person. We should stick together, and then everybody else do stick together. So now the guards looking dumb. Now they all want to play nice. Now they want to build bonds. And you really find some cool ones in there. You really find like some that'll help you or save you from uh a hole. So yeah, you find some type of little thing. But TYC, yeah, man, we had a we on every dorm. We were cool in there. For my birthday, I had a big old blow up water slide. It's like a big summer camp with a gate around it. So it's real easy to do, but it's just the guards.
It's the abuse.
You
How can that change? What would change? I mean, what would your solution be?
move it. I don't see no reason to have no TYC in the middle of the desert.
Right.
Move it.
Yeah.
It's like being in the bowl. All these mountains around, and we sunk down. We like right down. The town is like, nah, man. It get cold in them hills. Move it.
Well, there's something to that, right?
Mhm.
Tunchi, what about how these prisons are strategically placed in the most rural areas?
Yeah, well, I mean, you said move it, right? Like there's part of the solution. We don't want kids to be in any type of incarceration, carceral setting, right? But the problem with the state secure facilities, the five remaining, especially, Giddings being the cornerstone of all horrific things in TYC, no matter how much they try to hold that up as success. Um, it's in rural communities. These places were put into rural communities to build the economy. And 100 years ago, these places were places where often children of color went to for slave labor. That's what it was for. And these communities are built on that foundation. They refuse to let that go, even though they transformed this into a system of supposed justice and not labor. Right? That's still the foundation. So, I had a legislator ask me one time, well, I don't understand what's the problem with a big facility in these areas. I feel like I don't know, in her mind it just made more sense in terms of security. I said, ma'am, the abuse that went on there, right, at Brownwood, it's in the, I think it's grown a little bit since then, but these places are in the middle of nowhere. So who do I tell that I'm being sexually assaulted? Who? What? The culture is in the middle of the nowhere. My dad is 5 hours away. Who am I going to tell? It just breeds the type of culture of abuse and neglect that we've seen in these facilities. And it's hard for families to get there. It's hard for oversight.
Yeah, that's what Niala says she can answer Shaquille's question right here that's in the chat. But I also wanted to say about these institutions being in these rural communities. In addition to all of the things that you said, then oftentimes the staff members are related, blood related. We were, I mean, even in Gatesville,
we had a lot of mama and daughters, didn't
yeah, mama, daughters,
Yeah.
A lot of mama and daughters.
spouses,
Oh, yeah,
siblings,
them.
uncles, and they're all connected. They live in this small community, even if they're not related. They've grown up together, and so it makes it a little bit even more intimidating to be able to report something. So Shaquille is asking how many youth prisons are in Texas and what's the difference between youth prisons and juvenile detention centers?
That first one, I don't got no answer for you. You're gonna have to ask Google or Siri for that one. But that
Or
second
Tunchi.
one, my God. But look, check me out though. The difference between a juvenile detention center and a youth prison, one you only gonna do 10 business days. The other one they can take you. You catch a charge over there, they gonna like say you got 12 months. You catch a charge over there, they gonna send you to court. They gonna give you that same 12, add 3 more months to that. Every time you do it, they gonna give you the same time and just add. They just keep but they'll restart your time over. So like, say you did 9 months on that 12, it don't matter. They finna start you back at month 1. That's the difference. Juvenile detention, you can go to court and get out. They'll nah. And they can keep you to the day before your 19th birthday. It actually changed. I think back when you was there, Tunchi, wasn't it the day before your 21st? Yo, they changed it.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. Like juvenile detention centers are for the counties. That's where you're waiting for trial. You're waiting for your case to be resolved, and you may be able to go home with your parents or a guardian if the judge says that you're able to do that. And interesting, when a child is found, just as a piece of knowledge, when a child is found guilty or not guilty, that's not even the terminology. It's called being found that the charges are true or not true. That I always found that really striking. But youth prisons are operated by the state of Texas, so they're state secured facilities, and there's 5 of those remaining. They have closed a lot of them. They've done the things that we've asked them to do in the past. We just need them to go forward and finish the job and finish the 5 and really bolster community supports to be able to treat kids in their county in ways that are not carceral. And in some kids, I use myself as an example. I had to be somewhere safe. I couldn't go home. I was going to hurt somebody. And that, I say that to people not to be dramatic or confrontational. I'm just trying to say what I needed as a kid who was in severe crisis, right? Like I needed a setting that was safe where I didn't have to spend like we did in TYC all day long figuring out ways to hide from male staffers, or how am I going to eat, or do I need to hold my pee, because I know when they lock me in here it may be hours and hours before they let me out to go to the bathroom again, right? I needed somewhere safe to be able to do rehabilitation and programming and healing, and that just doesn't happen the way that anybody believes that it happens in a carceral setting for kids in Texas. But it was a good question, because it's kind of like the question when people say, well, what's the difference between county jail and prison, right?
Yeah,
It's
it's
the
the
same
same
thing.
thing.
It's
It's
the same.
basically county for kids, but without the bond part. And
Right.
then it's basically prison for kids, but without the. I guess I don't know. I don't know. They don't do what they do in the prisons for grown-ups.
So something happened to you at 17 while you were incarcerated. There was an incident. Can you tell us about that?
That's when I caught my charge to go to the pen. I was in. Okay, so when you get in trouble in TYC, just like they'll call what's it called on the pen? ICs.
ICS, or
Yeah, if
an
they
emergency situation where the
yeah.
officer's like, I need help.
Or what's the one that somebody assaults some officer and they'll call it
It's
ICS.
an ICS.
Okay, yeah. So like Penn, they have ICS. Well, in TYC, they just got security referrals. So basically, they'll get on their radio and they'll say where the location is at, and they'll just tell them there's 1 or 2 people, just like a police officer, and you have security that'll pull up. Security may be 1 to 4 different dudes. And
Mhm.
mind you, there's some big old dudes and we're nothing but kids. But I was getting restrained. I wasn't even getting restrained. I was just in handcuffs, but he wanted me to sit down on the ground because they was trying to figure out what's going on, and he wanted to be sure that I won't just jump up and do nothing, because he seen that I was mad, she was mad, we was already mad. And it was another caseworker.
Okay, that's what I was going to
Yeah,
ask.
it was a caseworker. It wasn't even a guard. We have caseworkers. And she wasn't even my caseworker. Matter of fact, she was another caseworker that was on the dorm. We have 3. And she was choking me. But I was mind you, I was in handcuffs. Well, I'm laying down. So my hands is behind my back. The lady choking me, I had to kick up off of me. And I went to court out there in Brownwood, just like you would in the same county you catch a charge.
Okay, wait. That you kicked her off of you,
Mm-hmm.
and
You would have called that self-defense.
you felt like you couldn't breathe.
Mm-mm.
I mean, I'm just trying to play it out in my hand, because all
Not at
3
all.
of us and anyone that's watching that has done any significant amount of time have seen an abuse of power like this, where an incarcerated person is already restrained. You were already laying down. So I'm just trying to work it out. Like, what reasoning did she have to still be? It was a woman.
Mm-hmm.
To be on top of you. So I'm just trying to get that very clear. And then you catch a charge. What does that look like? What's that process?
Oh man, the judge told me ain't no such thing as self-defense in Brownwood, Texas. So I had to take my plea. But you still go through, like, they certify me as an adult, but you still go through the same process as an adult would. You still go to county, you still get fingerprinted and all that, and then you wait to get transferred. I'll do the thumbprint. Yeah. So I went through the whole process. I had to go through the whole process.
Wait, you know, the very incident you're describing is exactly what happens to children from school age in schools, right? Because that's the school to prison pipeline, right? So a kid has an incident, whether it's manifestation of maybe a disability or mental health, and an adult over responds, usually out of anger, frustration, and so the child reacts. Right? That is self defense. A child is in survival mode, and they are not thinking about anything other than surviving. Right? You're already in survival mode. Right? So if someone's choking you, then you kick to push them off. And so what happens in schools is that to cover their liability, they'll charge the student with assault. And
Mm.
then they get to the juvenile justice system and it happens again, just like this. And so then what happens? You get transferred right down that pipeline. You continue to get pushed along, and then you end up in adult prison. I know a lady. I know she got trans. I don't want to say her name here, but I'm sure y'all would know her. She started off at a mental hospital the same way and got through the pipeline. And now she has so many stacked sentences because of staff assaults, that it says indeterminate on her TDCJ when you look her information up. And she was a kid when she got there. She was 15. And it's just constant survival mode. So what you're describing happens, unfortunately, to a lot of children in this state. It's not. It is that mindset that you heard from your judge. There's no such thing as self-defense.
Mhm.
There is. Y'all just refuse to recognize it when it comes to beating and abusing kids.
Exactly. That's exactly how I feel though. But I mean, you gotta protect yourself in TYC. It's so much stuff go on if you don't protect yourself. Like I had a friend, she got a chin busted open by a guard, man. A kid though, mind you, we kids. Tell me you wouldn't call CPS on something like that, man. Of course I defended her. She was nothing but like she's little and I'm kind of bigger, so of course I'm gonna defend her. Like you busted her chin open, dude, in the chow hall in front of everybody. So yeah, yeah, you have to really defend yourself in there. Cause if you don't, they just get away with everything.
Yeah. And then it's the kids that suffer. Then it's you that got charged with an assault, you know. So how somebody asked Marcy, and there was a question here about the adjustment. Hey, Rianne, um, was it a big adjustment for you to go from the youth prison to the adult system? Because I'll tell you, you tell me yours, and I'll tell you mine. What it because I was transferred
Yeah.
from Brownwood to Gatesville.
Um,
How did that go that first day when you got
you know
sent up?
what? You know what? That's a good question because you know what? I ain't really even think about. I ain't really just sit down and think about it like that. But it's a very big adjustment because, for the simple fact, when you go to that pen and you put your hand on the guard, you gonna get more time. You put your hand on them guards in there, they going to the hospital. They ain't, I mean, you can fight back in there. In the pen, you gotta learn how to hold your tongue, and they don't teach you that in TYC. They don't teach you nothing like because you ain't had to do that. I was there 4 years. I ain't have to do none of that. But when you go to the pen, you really gotta hold your tongue, temper, and hands. I mean,
Mhm.
because guards will try you in there, but you cannot touch them because you know you're gonna get some more time. It's a big, very big adjustment. Like I got pepper sprayed in county for talking to the sergeant. So I really was adjusting to that because I really wanted to whoop her behind, but I didn't do it because I'm like, I'm just in my head is just going face burning and all, but in my head I'm so mad I don't even feel it. I'm just thinking like, bro, don't touch it. You're gonna get more time. Don't touch it. You're gonna get more time. So you really learn how to think before you do something when you go to the pen. But when you in TYC, you really act before you think. So it's a very big adjustment, especially if you ain't used to it.
Mhm. Right, yeah, because, the youth system was so chaotic and the staff themselves were just as chaotic. Um, Yeah, and I do tell people that prison was I was relieved when I got to prison. I was greatly relieved, and they're like, "Oh, well, then maybe we should take the youth system and give it under the authority of TDCJ." And it's like, no, 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 that's not what we mean when I say that I was relieved and there was more stability there. It was a different type of violence than the violence I experienced as a kid. And, I got transferred by myself in a van with two male officers and got dropped off at the front gate at reception. This was before Woodman in Plain State. And I was about 119 pounds. I was 17. I was 2 weeks away from my 18th birthday. And it was, I wasn't afraid of the other women per se. I just felt so alone. Like, 'cause there was nobody there my age. They were all older ladies, and it took me a long time to adjust to that setting. And then I got classified to something called closed custody at Lane Murray. And, I'm sitting in that room and I have no idea what that means. And the women around me are just like, "You got classified to close custody?" I was like, "Yes. Does that mean that something is close to that building?" They're like, "Oh, no." And it took a lot of convincing for classification not to house me, simply based on my charge and my age. So I'm curious, how was that for you? Did staff treat you differently because you were younger? And did you get classified straight to Lane Murray?
No, I went to Hilltop. I went to
Okay.
the 2C unit. I guess that's where their Wild P program is
Mhm.
now. So I went to Hilltop, and usually they have specific guards that work with that building.
Mhm.
Um, I can't even say it's just for like that day, cause no, we done had like the same guards for like a week or something. So they literally have guards specifically for your dorm, and of course they rotate them, but ours was always cool. Like, you know, they were cool. They were real cool, real loving, understanding. They know we kids. They know we made mistakes. They ain't hard on us, and they were the ones that defended us the most. Like, even if they knew we had a case, they'll defend us and try to plead help us with and when we go to court. They was the ones. So now, it wasn't too bad for me because when I went with people from TYC. Like
Right.
I went with them. Like my charge, really, I ended up getting my charge after my ex-girlfriend, and we were best friends, but we had each other back in county and in Wild P, and then we got separated. So it was really easy coming in, and then after that, you just adjust. That's when the adjustments start when you go to GP.
Mhm.
Now I was a little, I was watching my surroundings the whole time because I got thrown on like a big dorm. I didn't get like on a smaller dorm that only had maybe 6, 7 beds in them. I was on maybe like what was it, like 32.
At Hilltop, there was a
Mm.
bigger dorm.
Like it's Echo unit. But it's E2 because E1 is for other folks, other crimes, and E2 is upstairs, and they had at least about 30 beds in there. I don't know. I know somebody from you probably was at Hilltop on here, but they at least had about 30 beds, maybe 40. So it's bigger than 6 or 7. You know what I'm saying?
So why'd you get moved to Lane Murray?
I caught a case for sagging.
Oh, please tell everybody that when we try to explain the weird petty cases that number one, women get, number two, women that look
Petty.
like stud broads, butch women, gay
Well,
women,
masculine in any
masculine
way.
women, right?
Women that have 5 children at home that wear a low ponytail and maybe edge up their hair because that's what they like,
Right.
those women are gonna get targeted by staff.
So tell us what sagging is.
Sagging is having your pants below your crack. right?
Below, below your waist,
I
right?
mean, yeah, below your waist, right? I was not sagging. My pants were at my waist. She just wanted them above my belly button.
Right.
And I told her, I'm not finna walk around like a
I'm
fool
not
for
doing
you.
it. I'm not doing
I told her, Mom,
it.
I'm a kid. I'm on my way to my, because when you in the Wild P program, you have to go to their programs for the youth. You have to do that. And I'm on my way to that program. So, of course, man, when you asked me to pick up my pants, I picked up my pants. I'm trying to get there so I won't get in trouble. She said, I want them above the belly button. I said, I'm not finna walk around like a fool for you. She said, all right, back in the building. I'm refusing your group. No, she said, you refusing your group. I said, how am I refusing? You told me to go in the building. Because when you're a wild P, you have to get escorted everywhere you go by a guard.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
have to. You have to. So she was trying to give me another case for walking up the stairs by myself. Man, it's just they
So,
target.
so those cases turned into, did they turn into major cases and you got shot off the
Oh, that
unit?
wasn't. It's a major case because I missed group.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. If you miss group, that's a major case. So
And
because
boom.
I missed group, I got two cases. I missed group and because I was sagging. So, yep.
Stupid shit. Stupid. 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 You know, and this is when we talk about the ways that we're harassed in petty ways. I think legislators just think that maybe it's, well, you know, it's difficult. It's hard. No, this has real consequences. I got kicked out of a program essentially because my pants were below my belly button, and there is a rule that says that you have to wear your clothes a certain way. But now, Marcy, I don't know if you ever got harassed about your clothes was sagging, but I'm just, nothing infuriated me more than when I would get pat searched and an officer would grab my pants because I'm skinny, and so all my pants look too big, even if I wore them up here. And so,
And it's like
first of all,
they'll purposely pat search you
yes,
just so they can do that.
and I said, Please stop doing that. Stop grabbing my." To me, it felt like harass. It felt weird.
Mhm.
It felt violating. It felt, you know. And so they would pull it, and then that they would say the same thing. Your pants go up here. I'm going to
Mhm.
write you. And I said, No, I'm not going to walk around. One officer made me walk to the dorm like that, and everybody I knew was out the window going, "Girl, why do you look like that? What's wrong with you?"
Oh
And it
man.
was a way to shame those of
Hmm.
us because of the way we looked. And it girl, it would make me so angry. It you know, and I got threatened the few times that I got threatened with a case, and it was behind that. It
Hmm.
was behind those stupid pants. um I'm sorry that that happened. I'm sorry for all the things that you had to endure as a child. But that's a, you know, and you lost your program. You had to get kicked out of your program for something stupid like that, for harassment.
But see, that's what come into play where I had to learn to adjust because the old me would have whooped her behind for that. Like,
Right.
to be honest, I would have because not only was I in this program, the lady of the program would let me call my dad at the time. He's my adopted dad, but he was old. And there were certain times in the day where they will take him off his antibiotics enough where he can eat, and that's when he was in his right state of mind. Because he's old. He's literally about to pass any time. So me making this connection with this lady, every time we go to group, I'm able to talk to my dad. I'm able because that's all I did in TYC. That's all I worried about was my dad. I always had that one person that let me call him. And so for me to have that finally in the pen, and I'm new to the pen, of course I'm gonna keep this going. So this made me mad when you did that because you knew they were gonna G4 me for that. You knew that.
Over
These
a pair of pants.
Right. These petty cases that these officers are writing that don't hold any value to making the prison safer literally are breaking communications between family. And it happened to me too, baby, because I
Man,
got a case for being in the shower at count time in a dorm that had no clock, you know, and the
like how
officer,
you supposed to know?
right, the officer came in, called count, and I quickly put on my clothes wet body, ran to my bunk, was at my bunk before she got there, and I got that case, and it prevented me from having contact special visits once a month with my daughter, which was a program that they had with my girls where I could sit in the floor and play with them like a
Mm-hmm.
mom and not like inmate number 1743246 at a table with the guard peering over our head, and those are the kind of real consequences that
Mm-hmm.
happen behind these officers writing these ridiculous disciplinary cases.
Honey, when you said that, Marcy, I watched her face because I knew that she was going to get, and I watched your face, the anger and rage in your face when she told that story of, of being out of that program and she was able to talk to her dad. Because data shows, right? This isn't just anecdotal. Data shows that women are disciplined far, far worse and more harshly than men are. First of all, they're sentenced differently. But when we
What?
get
Oh,
inside, we are punished differently than men are for dumb shit all the time with real consequences. Real consequences. And that is the piece that is so hard to translate, um, because when they hear, okay, well, y'all have rules that you have to follow. The agency has rules for order and blah 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 blah. Because they see those outwardly things that men who are incarcerated do. When, well, this is why we have to have rules, but not understanding that our experience is different and we don't have those types of problems. And it goes to this over policing of women, their bodies. The You did a TikTok about it one time, and the clothing harassment thing kind of plays right into it too. It is this overreaction craziness in terms of our sexuality, our bodies, the clothes we wear. Because that was, the crux of being harassed about your clothes. Well, the femmes too got harassed. Y'all got harassed too. If you put on the right makeup and your clothes were tight whites,
they
you
think
got
you
harassed
adjusting
too.
everything.
Mm-hmm.
Some
Make
people
you
I seen one little girl put on a pair of pants. She didn't even adjust them. She just got them from laundry like that. Man, they said they wrote her a case for that, and she didn't even do
right,
nothing. But the crazy part about it is when they turned them inside and out, there was no extra lining. There was none.
right,
They
So
hadn't been altered. They
at
just fit
all.
her nicely and
Yep.
right.
she looked nice. And they don't want us to look that way. They don't want incarcerated women to look or feel any kind of confident. They don't want any femininity to show.
Mm-mm.
And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, they don't want any masculinity to show. They want us to be this little robot in these oversized, horribly stained, blood stained often
Mm-hmm.
clothes from laundry, and that's the only way you could get through without ever being noticed. But guess what, when that's your life, when you're doing real time, and I mean, not maybe 1 year I could have done that, Tunchi, but I could not have lived that way
Mm-hmm.
without showing any bit of my own personality, without putting on mascara because that's what makes me feel like me. I could not have done that without fixing my hair because that's what made me feel like me, cleaning my clothes. I couldn't have done that for the 10 years that I was there, but that would have been the only way I would not have had any negative attention
Mm-hmm.
from staff.
My
Right.
thing is, why sell a makeup palette if you ain't even gonna let the girls use it like that?
Because we
$15, 15 or
right, because we want that $15 for that $2 palette that
that
you
you done
got.
got from Walmart or the
Right.
Dollar General. Like, come on, man. Nah.
Well, it's the whole thing with uniforms and prisons is it's to take away our individuality, right? And I think for women, it's times 10. It's worse. And you see pictures of, and I do like to commend the improvements, but I always make sure that people understand that I'm talking about Wyndham. I'm talking about prison ministries. I'm talking about Wyndham. I'm not talking about TDCJ unit daily stuff. That's not what I'm talking about. Those two things are, like we said at that hearing, those two things exist at the same time. Women being empowered and encouraged, and the Strive program, they have their own clothing closet. They give them makeup when they really try to build that self-esteem. And during that tour, I'm looking at it and I'm like, this is fantastic. But if you really want to help this, then why are we tearing down their self-esteem during their entire stay only to try to put it together at the end, right? So it infuriates me the way that women are treated so differently.
And you said it, Tunchi, tearing down, breaking down, tearing down. We hear so many comments about when I'm telling some kind of story or you're telling some kind of story on one of our social media platforms, and we get these comments. Sounds like basic training to me. Sounds like basic training. Because guess what? That is what basic training is designed to do, to break a person down and build them up in a team, because they are preparing these people to go out and do some horrific things upon order, upon the drop of a order, and they're building them back up. Well, we incarcerated people, there's not a build back up
Right.
time. You are just beaten down and beaten down and beaten down. And these kids are 13 and 14 and 15 and 16, and they are being verbally and mentally and physically broken down every day that they are incarcerated in survival mode 24/7 while they are there. How in the hell can we as a society in our state be okay with treating any children this way?
Well, I think the answer is the really sad answer to why. And I try to bring this point up over, and it kind of drifts off into the conversation because let's talk about why are these children being treated this way, right? It's because the children that we're talking about children of color. We're talking about children with disabilities, with mental health problems, children from poverty. That's the kids that are getting treated like this, and that's why it continues.
I'll tell you this: we talked in the car about some of the racial injustices.
Oh yeah.
That's a very polite way for me
yeah.
to say the racist assholes that you had to put up with while you were incarcerated. And that was another thing. You said something, and just because I don't know if you remember exactly what you said, I'm just going to repeat it.
I don't remember.
Niala was talking about the rural Texas town that she was imprisoned in had a racist culture about it. Therefore, the staff from that rural racist area
will bring that energy with them to work. So we have to deal with this stuff that you were taught as a child, because you don't just wake up one day and be like, oh, I don't like the other race. Nah, man, you was taught that. So we have to deal with something you was taught as a child, and that energy every day by day, day by day. And then when they do training, when they add new guards, they do training, but they do it within the facility. So while these guards are training, they're going around the facility. So they'll see somebody putting a child in a timeout. Here come the new guards want to do the same thing that they doing. Nah, man, you just started. Sit down somewhere, because you don't know. We listen to them because we done had this discussion. We probably done had a situation or a fallout or something where we got this understanding. Okay, I done acted out towards another female, but I'm gonna listen to what this guard say because I'm cool with this guard. Like, it's so much stuff you have to deal with, but it's very little bitty guards that are not racist in there. It's a small handful.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about the solution to that, and I want to tell you that I think that you are definitely one of the most wonderful people that I know. I just love you so much, and I'm so happy to spend this time with you. Tunchi and I are so grateful for the insight that you've given everyone today about the way that the youth are treated in Texas prisons right here, right now, in this day and age, 2023. This kind of stuff is happening. And so I'm going to let you go get back on your phone, and Tunchi and I will talk about the.
I gotta leave you. Okay.
We just have a few more minutes, and you don't have to. You can sit right here, but we're just going to talk
I'm
about.
too black for y'all. You should send some more stars. Maybe it might brighten my face. I'm a little dark on this camera. I'm gonna go this way.
We've been trying to position both of us on the camera to look cute together. So okay, well, what all of this is happening. All of these are happening right now while we're talking. There are children incarcerated, 13, 14, 15, 16 years old, in survival mode, complete survival mode. What do we do? What's the solution, Tunchi?
Well, the solution is number one, vote, right? Like, the only way that we're going to get any legislation that starts to change and transform this is to have the right people that will vote favorably to close youth prisons. So that number one. Number two, support legislation that calls just for that. We worked on some legislation this session that would call for a staggered closure plan of the rest of these facilities and create a new system, a new vision of justice that doesn't rely on carceral settings out in rural areas with very little oversight. It would call for, you know, more hospital like health and human services, essentially would be over this office to really treat kids where they're at in their counties. So
right now, Tunchi, right now, there are people that are watching, and thank you guys so much. We see you in the chat. This has been kind of a quick moving episode, so we haven't interacted with y'all as much as we normally do, but we're so glad you're here, and we appreciate you every time that you tune in. But right now, there's somebody watching that's saying, what are we going to do with the kids if we're closing all 5 prisons, the last 5 prisons? There are still going to be kids that find themselves in trouble, in bad situations, that need attention. What are we doing with them?
Yeah, so the vision that we're talking about is actually the continuation of a plan that started several sessions ago. We had more facilities than just 5, and we closed those. The population was upwards to 2,000. The population now is around 600. This also meant decriminalizing things that children get in trouble for that shouldn't be crimes, like addiction, truancy, petty things that they should never be in a state secured facility for, right? So if we didn't have youth prisons, what do we have then? Well, our vision is to have an Office of Youth and Safety and Rehabilitation under Human and Health Services, right? That would keep kids in the county, and it would utilize programming in safe, secure facilities within the county to treat kids who are in the deepest crisis. Because remember, I always talk about that. I'm like, I'm one of those kids. I'm one of those kids that could not go home, that was a harm to herself, and I had threatened other people. So there's absolutely no way that I needed to have the freedom to come and go and to do as I pleased, because I was going to hurt someone and myself, quite frankly. So the type of settings that those children need to be in need to be therapeutic, safe, and secure, right? In their counties, near their homes, with deep therapeutic, trauma-informed care, in a setting that feels conducive to therapy, that they feel safe in. And this is what I always tell legislators. I tell people at the state agencies, they want me to come talk about my experience, and well, setting matters. Tell that to our medical staff. Yeah, but what I'm going to have to tell them is that setting at Giddings is never going to be safe, right? So part of your therapy is never going to work, because a carceral setting is never safe for a child, never, right? So we're going to make sure that those kids, we get that number down as low as we can, and we find safe, secure settings within the counties. Right.
Joy has a question for you, Tunchi.
Yeah, if you don't live in Texas, that's okay. Do what you can in your state. that certainly join national movements that call for closing youth prisons. And there's nothing stopping you from still telling our legislators. You may not live here, but I feel like any voice um, matters, and it matters to the advocates on the ground to know that we have people cheering for us. I saw something recently that was like Texas doesn't need your scorn. We need your help, and we need your support and your faith in us to pull our shit together. So we love any support that you can bring.
That's a lot. My heart and my spirit feel so heavy every time we're talking about these kids. And there are a lot of people in our space as far as advocacy goes towards prison reform and restorative justice and even abolition, all of that, that don't touch this area. And this is why, because the reality of it, how inhumane these kids are living. And when you really let it sink in that right now, when you're hanging out at your kids' ball practice listening to us, or you're sitting at home on your couch watching us on YouTube, there are kids right now suffering. And it's heart-wrenching, and we have to come together to make a change for that.
Yeah, you're right, Marcy. It is heavy, and I it takes me back to those empty cells and all those things that I went through as a little girl, as a 15-year-old girl, and it's bad, and I don't want any child to continue to have to go through any of it.
Guys, we're at our hour. We're at our hour, and we're not going to take up any of more of your time tonight. And we don't even know what we're talking about next week because we have been going so strong. Tunchi, what are we thinking for next week?
I don't know. Does somebody have before we go? Does anybody
You guys
have
have any ideas for us?
any subjects or topics?
Yeah.
I mean, me and Marcy never run out of things.
No, we could just hop on here and talk about our time together. So we'll never be without conversation for sure. But I thought about jobs, different. What about jobs in Texas
Oh,
prison?
let's do it. Let's talk
Okay.
about jobs, because I want to talk about, I do love talking about the way that everything is so unique in women's prison, and there is a social structure around what type of job you have and who got what job. The white
Yes.
girls were always the clerks, and the women of color were usually in the kitchen or in the laundry. Now, I mean, that was predominant. Like there are real weird. It's interesting. I would love to
Okay.
discuss that.
Okay. We're going to dive into that next week. Same time, same place. Any final thoughts, Tunchi?
I just love y'all. I love that y'all hang in with us and come hang out with us on the rec yard. Me and Marcy, we appreciate you. We may not have 1,000 followers yet, but we love the people that hang out with us and enjoy our guests. So I just wanted to let everyone know how much I appreciate them.
Very much so. Thank y'all. Same time, same place. Next Wednesday night, 7 o'clock Central Standard Time. Join us live. And if you guys will like, comment, share this live, we would appreciate y'all so much. This is the jazzy music that's coming.
It's coming. I like to dance to the music that we don't
Okay, they're
have
calling
yet.
Rec. They're yelling at us to get